Good morning, everyone. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear participants, let me welcome you to the first info session we are having today in Kosovo, and we have announced that during our national launch event. My name is 𝗂𝗪𝗏 𝗂𝗏𝗴𝗶. I'm part of the Regional Challenge Fund Management Unit as a regional coordinator for Albania, Kosovo, and North Macedonia, and I'll be the moderator of this webinar. For this webinar to be a flawless and a pleasant experience, we also have our technical support team with us. And I'll leave the word to Alexandra to share some recommendations. Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Mr. Vasily. Dear attendees, welcome to the info session of the Regional Challenge Fund in Kosovo. The webinar provides interpretation in Albanian. Click the interpretation icon, globus icon, on the Zoom toolbar to activate simultaneous translation. Choose the language you want to hear from the language menu, Albanian audio channel. You may mute the original sound with the Mute Original Audio button in the language menu. You may ask questions in the chat or Q&A box. To ask a question in the chat, choose during the webinar to all panelists and attendees option. The questions will be answered during the webinar. If time left, some of the attendees will have a chance to join live program and ask their questions live. It is recommended to ask questions after the panelists finish their presentations. Please check if the audio settings on your Zoom application are set up correctly. To do that, click on the arrow beside the microphone button on the lower left corner of your screen and choose Test Speaker and Microphone. If you are experiencing technical difficulties hearing the webinar, please check your audio settings, or you may contact technical support via chat or info@rcf-wb6.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. You all heard about the chat and the Q&A option, and as Alexandra explained also the option of asking live questions. We'll try to address your questions related to what we're going to discuss today, the expression of interest process, eligibility and selection criteria, either in written in the Q&A session or by using the live session. Before taking you all to a short presentation on eligibility and selection criteria, as well as the application process, I would like to say a few words on the Regional Challenge Fund. As you saw in the introductory video, the Regional Challenge Fund aims to strengthen the labor market relevance of vocational education and training by funding investments in equipment and infrastructure for training providers that engage in cooperative training activities with partnering enterprises. By working with both VET providers and private companies, it seeks to raise the overall quality of vocational education training and to align it with the needs of labor markets in the individual countries throughout the region. This will support, hopefully, the increased employability of young people and graduates and contribute to economic growth and regional integration as well. The Regional Challenge Fund is commissioned by the German government to KfW Development Bank and is executed by the Western Balkan Six Chambers Investment Forum. This is a joint initiative of chambers of commerce from WB6 countries. The chambers have established a platform of cooperation in 2017 with the aim to provide a joint voice to the business community in the region, facilitating inter-business contacts and promoting the region as one investment destination. In Kosovo, CIF, Chambers Investment Forum, is being represented by the Kosovo Economic Chamber. The operational and financial management of the Regional Challenge Fund is delegated to the implementation consultant, a consortium of 4 international companies and institutions, namely IPC, Blanco, Swiss Contact, and KPMG, who together have a combined extensive experience with the professional management of large projects, including vocational education training ones, as well as having an extensive regional footprint with local presence and large network within public and private sector. The fund management unit is a core operational entity of the fund. I'm here today with two colleagues of mine, Mr. Frieder Вормand as a team leader and Mr. Pavol Kapsdorfer as a regional coordinator. And I would like to give the word to Mr. Вормand to say a few words on the Regional Challenge Fund and Fund Management Unit. Thank you, Frieder.
Thank you, Renato, and yeah, a warm welcome from my side as well to all the participants. Yes, I would not spend too much time before we go into the real topic of the event, which is the eligibility and the selection criteria. Nevertheless, maybe a brief overview of the work of the FMU, how we are organized. We are managing the funding activities and operate over a period of 4 years. That is, I think, also important to know. This is now the first call for expressions of interest out of a series of at least 5 calls over the next couple of years. And yeah, the FMU operates out of Podgorica for the regional challenge fund, and we have established a regional setup with the regional coordinators. Renato has mentioned that already, which take care of individual countries. So Renato is the one in charge, obviously, for Kosovo, and will guide you through the selection and relevant expression of interest criteria. The role of the fund management unit is to organize the entire process of the funding activities, starting from the promotion and the information events that we are running right now. There's been a national event 10 days ago, I think, and there will be more events coming up for sharing information and as well providing support with filling the expressions of interest in the first place. Then we will organize the application and selection process, which is a two-staged process. The expression of interest phase will result in a short list from the different countries, and then leading to a second stage where the full proposals and applications are being evaluated by external experts, and it's also important to mention. And then the FMU will as well support with the implementation of the project, including for many items the procurement, which will take place according to the KfW guidelines as the main donor in this case. So it's from the beginning to the end. We will be the counterparts for projects, and that's a pleasure for us, and hopefully as well as support for you. Currently, we are operating completely in an online modus. This will hopefully change at some point in time. All the info events and tutorials, the dates for them can be taken from our webpage. Also the social media, and on social media we're active, so also there the information is available, and so always useful to go there from time to time and have the online, that is then the part Pavol will take over later on, and it also takes place completely. The application takes place online via a web portal, and also there a short introduction later during this session. Before I give back to Renato, maybe a short hint and a short reference to a similar fund that we're managing for Kosovo. We are in the lucky position to manage 2 funds, but it's the Regional Challenge Fund, which we are presenting today. There's also upcoming the Kosovo Challenge Fund, which is implemented in cooperation with the Ministry of Education and Science, which follows the same eligibility and selection criteria, and will be introduced later this month and in early April, and will provide additional funding opportunities for VTIs in Kosovo. Also more on that on our website and web pages, but now I give to Renato for providing an overview of the eligibility and selection criteria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frieder, for your introduction. I will share my screen now. Is it visible? Well, as we mentioned in my introduction and Frieder's introduction about the Regional Challenge Fund aims and objective, the RCF grant support program is intended to strengthen cooperative training and thereby to increase the quality and employment relevance of vocational training measures. Therefore, with regard to the question, who can apply for support, the RCF is very much supporting the 𝗤𝗍𝗧, the forming of the 𝗤𝗍𝗧 consortia. I will explain shortly what a 𝗤𝗍𝗧 consortia is in our, let's say, terminology. 𝗤𝗍𝗧 consortia will be formed by public or private educational institutions of all levels, including associations, providers of vocational education and training, whose training programs lead to a publicly recognized qualification. And we'll come to that later, explaining in more details the eligibility criteria for the 𝗤𝗍𝗧s itself. There should be, as a minimum requirement, one 𝗤𝗍𝗧 in the consortia and a minimum of 2 companies, regardless of the sector, size, and these companies are, let's say, willing and engaged together with the 𝗤𝗍𝗧 to offer learning through work within their within the company and within their business premises. By putting together their efforts, they jointly improve an existing program, a training program, or they plan to participate in dual education. In the consortia, the leading role stays with the 𝗤𝗍𝗧, the Vocational Training Institute, and the 𝗤𝗍𝗧 is the beneficiary of the financial support from the Regional Challenge Fund. During the expression of interest phase, the phase that we are, and now the suitability of proposed projects would be assessed against the following criteria, and I will guide you through all of them, just in order to be clear for you the criteria that should be met at this stage. Start with, as I said, the VET consortia, which comprises at least 1 vocational training institute and at least 2 enterprises. The consortia partners are only represented in 1 project proposal per call. This is the first call. We have announced earlier that we'll be launching other calls in the course of the project, and that lasts until beginning of 2025 and aims to finance and support through financing programs of at least 60 projects, and aiming to prepare 1,500 students out of that programs. The Regional Challenge Fund funded cooperative training projects provide training places for at least 15 learners in the first year and 15 learners in the second year. The partnering enterprises commit to offer sufficient workplace learning as well as teaching capacities within the company. The RCF funded cooperative training projects are open to all ethnic groups. There should be no discrimination with regards to gender as well, and vulnerable groups. They should all have access in participating in these joint programs. Cooperative training coordinators are appointed by each consortium member. So there will be 1 training coordinator at the level of 𝗤𝗍𝗧 and training coordinator at the level of enterprises. Consortia ensure that accident insurance for all trainees is provided in line with the national regulations. In Kosovo, recently the Ministry of Education has issued also a guideline on the work-based learning, which regulates the cooperative training program, and it stipulates also the accident insurance. Consortia members operate in compliance with our occupational health and security, and also environmental and social management guidelines. I'll come back to these documents later when explaining the application process. Consortia members consent to publishing good practices and share knowledge with the RCF stakeholders. VTIs joining the consortia are licensed by the relevant national authority. Private VTIs are accredited by the relevant national authority. Consortia are based on a cooperative training partnership, which is documented in a memorandum of understanding between the participating parties. And that is one of the key documents to be prepared in the expression of interest phase. Cooperative training projects funded under RCF lead to nationally recognized qualifications and are in line with the applicable national qualification framework. So the curricula and occupational standards are first being approved by the national authority and are part of the national qualification framework. Just a second. The proposed project does not increase the number of training places at the partnering VTI by more than 50% compared to the existing number of training places. Consortia members agree to disclose their financial status during the application phase. We have a clear criteria for the submission of financial statements. We'll discuss that a bit later. Consortia have received a support letter from the relevant authority confirming its commitment to support the VTI during the implementation of the project and the delivery of the proposed cooperative training. And last but not least, the requested funding ranges between euro 150,000 and 600,000. And what is this money, the non-payable grant being used by RCF? What are the measures that we support? We support the workshop infrastructure and equipment at the VTI, support the VTI teacher training to enhance their, let's say, teaching, but not only teaching and management capacities. We support the financing of consumables and resources for training in the educational institution, in vocational educational institution, finances well equipment for safety and health of students and trainers in the company, and provide also accompanying support in adapting cooperative education to the new reality. In order to reach its goals of strengthening the quality and labor market relevance of VET, but at the same time to increase the availability of skilled workers for companies, the grant foresees two different categories of investment, as I just explained, the financial investments and advisory supports, and covers the following aspects of cooperative training activities. So financing of training facilities and equipment at VTIs. And how does it happen? By provisioning of funds for extension of training related workshop facilities and or the repair of training equipment, provided that those equipment and facilities are owned by the VTIs. Worth mentioning here that all new investments supported by the fund will be owned by the VTI. Investing in practical work experience of vet teachers by enabling them to directly get involved in the VTI consortia, to spend time in enterprises and to gain insights into the organizational, operational, technical aspects of the work performed. And funding as well pedagogical training of vet teachers and or in-company trainers. Purchasing of training material, other medias for practical training is also an eligible cost that will be financed by RCF, and covering of expenses for consumables to a limited extent, and of those consumables that are related to the implementation of the planned cooperative training project. And last but not least, we support related aspects such as occupational health and safety standards, provision of appropriate working conditions for vocational learners, formation, educational formation of vet teachers and in-company trainers, both at VTI and their cooperating enterprises through, as I mentioned earlier, accompanying advisory support. The following activities are not eligible for RCF funding: purchase of equipment which is not directly related to the establishment of a new or upgrading extension of existing cooperative training program. This is not eligible. Activities of the VTI that the VTI already is applying and implementing are not going to be financed. Only activities that provide a new value-added component of the CT program to the partners, normal activities will be supported, and the running normal operational costs of VTIs or partnering enterprises will not be supported. Shortly on the RCF timeline, starting from the first call that we launched as of 1st of February. There will be a 90 days time for all potential applicants to submit the expression of interest during this period. As we are started today, we'll be having 2 info sessions and 2 tutorial sessions planned for Kosovo, through which we'll try to answer most of your question and to talk also on the technical aspects of the project proposals. Appraisal of the expression of interest will be done by a pool of international vet experts, and that will take place during May. So until the end of May, a short list and of those who passed the successfully the expression of interest phase will be prepared, and we'll be inviting them to submit project proposals. And there will be another 60 days for the applicants to prepare the project proposals and to submit that. The deadline is July 31st. The selection experts will go through, evaluate the project proposals, and will come up with their decisions by the end of August. And the applicants that are awarded the grants will be negotiating with them funding agreements and conclude with signing by latest end of September, so that to be on time for the beginning of the beginning of the new academic year. In the second stage of the application process, the selection of successful consortia and project proposals, as I explained, takes place, and it takes place against the following selection criteria. We have categorized them into three separate categories: conceptual, ambition, and feasibility criteria. I'll guide you shortly through them. So Vocational Training Institute, the VTIs and cooperating enterprises take joint responsibility for planning, implementation and monitoring of the project and the proposed cooperative training program. The funded program shall comply with the approved national occupational standards. We mentioned that. Ideally, show improvements towards compliance with EU standards. Within consortia, enterprise-based training phases shall increase as a result of the RCF funding. That is one of our objectives. I would like to see that in the project proposals. The trainees during the in-company training shall be actively involved in the work process and acquire, therefore, the needed practical workplace relevant skills. With regards to the ambition criteria, those funded programs should reflect labor demand, workplace requirements, in particular of small and medium-sized companies. The training concept is innovative, shows the upgrading and upscaling plan for the overall VTI. Funding programs, and this is again one of the RCF goals and objectives. Funded programs contain a concept how to ensure employment of learners after graduation. With regards to the visibility elements, the funded programs are operated according to efficiency criteria and effectively contribute to the RCF objectives. That consortia will co-finance the cooperation training projects by making a matching contribution of at least 10% of the total requested funding amount. And the contribution may be provided financially and or in kind to the coverage of operational costs and or investment costs. The training concept for vocational teachers and partnering VTIs and in-company trainers is appropriate. So I'd like to see there that the practical component of the program is significant, although it depends on the national curriculums. We would like to see that it is or it reaches during the program at least 25% of the training to happen on the job. And the operation and maintenance concept ensures sustainable operations and an appropriate level of regular maintenance for buildings and training equipments in order to ensure continuity of operations and education program. So summarizing what kind of projects are desirable and what we expect from the project proposals that would be submitting, those projects who include or involve the concept, the elements of joint planning and implementation of the cooperative training, projects that ensure an outreach of students, a number of available training places, in this case, justifies the investments asked for, and the program is in line with the current capacities of the institutions involved. So we'll be, looking at this, let's say, gradual or stepped up approach of the training programs. Those projects should already have a cooperative training program, an existing one, show improvement or new programs are being introduced in the course of the project. Projects should have the element of quality throughout their duration, and the quality we refer to the cooperative training coordinator in company and in schools on the contracts and agreement set between the VTIs 𝗂𝗧𝗏 consortia partners, but also with the learners. The plan of work-based learning, trained in company instructors, and or trainers. So the project that lead to nationally recognized qualifications would be the one that will be, let's say, have an advantage, and capacity building also is another component of a desirable project. Capacity building referring to that of institutions and individuals, including students, teachers, instructors, and projects should ensure sustainability results after the support from the RCF ends. And all these, let's say, elements that I just explained will lead to cooperative or dual educational model. Practical training within the companies should be quite, let's say, the element would be looking at, and they will ensure and or will lead to employability and employment perspective of the students and trainees. That's the ultimate goal of the project. With regards to the application for the expression of interest, and after this I will leave my word to my colleague Pavol to guide us through the application, online application at the RCF webpage. 3 key, let's say, forms and documents are required at this stage. The expression of interest, which you'll find online. It's an informative form. The memorandum of understanding I mentioned earlier as the, let's say, the document who regulates the cooperation between VTI and enterprises, and the letter of support from the authorities. Also in the application section in the web page, you'll find the RCF guidelines on environmental and social management, and also on occupation health and safety standards, as well as the exclusion list from KfW. So thank you for your attention. I will now give my word to Pavol. Pavol, please, if you can guide us through the online application of the expression of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Renato.
Thank you.
Let me share my screen. Can you see it now? Okay, thank you. All right, so first of all, let me tell you that I'm not going to give you a very detailed description of our grant application portal, but give you a very brief overview of what you can expect, and all other details which will be necessary for you to learn will be shared with you at the tutorial session. But I believe we will not really need to go too much into details, because the system itself is very intuitive, self-explanatory, and you are basically guided through each step of your application completion. So let me show you a few screenshots from the system. But first of all, how do we get access to the portal? So on every top of the page of our website, you will see the button Apply Online, which gives you the access to the grant management portal. Once you push it, you are redirected to the portal where you need to register yourself with the basic information, and afterwards you get access to your application. When you start your application, then you will get to the summary page. At the summary page, you will see this page with the 9 sections. At the bottom, I'm showing now, which you can complete in any order you want. So it's not really mandatory to follow the order, but every time you enter the information, you will see how far do you get here on the summary screen. At the top of each page in the portal, you will see the part with certain text, which represents the guiding notes. So basically, each applicant is guided what is requested from him at the particular page to enter. And here at the summary page, you also see these two buttons at the top of the 9 sections called application and participants. The participants represents the enterprises, the partner enterprises, which are engaged in your vet consortium. I will get back to this button and the instructions at the end of my presentation, but let me now show you the example of the screen of the first section of eligibility criteria, where you will see the criteria which you need to answer whether you are fulfilling or not. And the system is set up in a way that if you would not answer or would show non-compliance with the criteria, that you will get automatic message, a pop-up message from the system, which is informing you about non-compliance with the eligibility criteria, and you will not be able to submit your application until you comply with all the criteria. This system is also the same with any other sections or pages you will be required to complete. Every time you missed some field to complete or to reply, you will get an automated message that certain field is not complete, and you need to complete it before you will be able to submit your application. That doesn't mean that you can't continue to fulfill other fields, but it's just a message from the system that you will need to return to this part. So you can save your work in progress and return to this section to the fields which you still need to complete later on. And the automated messages will be given for all the questions or fields which are mandatory. And the mandatory sections or question fields are marked with the asterisks, as you see here on the right side. So these are mandatory to fill in when you will be completing your application. Let us now to look at these two buttons of application and participants. As I explained to you, the participants mean participating enterprises in the vet consortium, and you will need to invite these participating enterprises once you will be filling the application, and the VTI as a leading partner is requested to provide the entries for required information and data, but all inviting partnering enterprises must approve the application before its submission. The enterprises will have an option to edit their contact information or main characteristics on their own if necessary, but we recommend that this is all done by the leading partner, by the VTI, and the enterprises will only check the information and agree with the application, with the content. Once they will review it, as is also mentioned in these guiding notes, there is an instruction here that they will need to push the button finish contribution, which is basically approval, their approval with little declaration with the content of the application. This can be done only after minimum 2, but if you would have more enterprises, when all the enterprises will basically, all the information about all enterprises will be completed, then each enterprise will need to push the button with the approval of the application. After all information are entered and confirmed by the enterprises, only then the VTI, as a leading applicant, will be able to submit the application to the RCF. The deadline for submission of the currently open call for expression of interest is Friday, 30th April, and each applicant will be notified after the submission of their application with the acknowledgement email. So you can be sure that it has been submitted and registered and noticed by the RCF. After the submission, the applicant will be able to log in and view, but will not be able to modify it anymore. And it is the same also when the deadline passes on, you will not be able to edit the applications anymore. Each applicant will be notified on the result of the application review. And when approved, the applicant will be invited to submit the full project proposal. If you would have any questions, queries, how to work with the application prior, we do this tutorial session, you can always write your queries, questions to the email which is mentioned here within the application. And it is, as you can see in the frame, applications@rcf-wp6.org, and we will try to assist you with your questions or queries. But this would be it from my side, Renato. If there will be any questions related to this, to the portal, to the application system, I can always answer them later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel. And yeah, exactly. We are having some questions already, and we'll jump into them now. I'll start with the questions that we have in the Q&A. There is one question for Ms. 𝗵𝗏 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗶. I think Frida would like to answer that. What about the letter of support issued by authorities? Yes, does it mean that public vet schools should take the letter of support from Ministry of Education and Science?
Yes, I think so. That's the that's the authority in financing it. But it is also related to the to budget questions, so it might well be the responsible municipality where we would expect it from. So the Ministry of Education is of course endorsing the training program, but in this case we're looking more for the budget related question, the support, and this then, as far as I understood, comes from the municipality. Renato, correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Frida. The other question I would like to take here is from Ms. Viola Ciavolli. The project supports new and innovative training programs, while the VTI should be accredited by national institutions. The new training programs not necessarily are accredited by the national institutions, yes. Will it be possible to apply in the grant program if the institution is accredited for some of the programs, while this specific program that is evidenced as a necessity by a specific industry is not accredited yet, but it is in the process by national institutions? And I think, yes, the consortia could apply, although the specific training program is, let's say, under preparation or under accreditation or approval from the national authorities. We mentioned earlier that it has to comply with the national qualification framework, and it has to be compliant to all the standards. It is important to notice that the programs of the consortia, the cooperative training programs, should lead to a publicly recognized certificate and diploma, and therefore they should be accredited. Frida may help me now. We said that we leave a period of time of 6
exactly,
months.
Let me just come in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we expect is that indeed by signing the funding agreements, the accreditation is available. Yeah, and between the periods between the final approval, so the positive information on the funding, and signing the funding agreement, there might be a certain time period during which as well the accreditation can be obtained. That's basically maximum 6 months, but usually should not be that long.
Mr. Denis Gafuri, up to how many companies can join the project? The minimum is 2 companies, 2 enterprises. Ideally, as many as possible would be good, but again, to bear in mind, and I explained that during the presentation, there should be this, let's say, component there of, let's say, harmonizing the capacities with the current capacities with the future projects, and keep also in mind that the cooperative training program will not increase more than 50% of the current training places. Can we apply, Mr. Karatashi, can we apply if we have international accreditation for the specific qualification, since Kosovo law accepts international accreditations? Yes. I mean, if it is recognized by the authorities, yes. Mr. Besnik Skanderi, VET, okay, VET programs are accredited from National Accreditation Agency. Do we need support letter from Ministry or from National Accreditation Agency? I think Frieder already explained that you needed support letter from the Ministry of Education, but since it has a budget element in that, let's say, extension of that support letter or a support letter from the municipality economic department might be required as well. Mr. Gafuri said that, I mean, with 1 school, yes, the VTI consortia is the minimum requirement is 1 school and 2 companies. What about if you are accredited by National Qualification Authority, or do you need to have additional license from the respective institution? We've made, if you noticed during my presentation, we said that we need license, the VTI should be licensed. It goes without saying that, especially for a public VTI operating in VET education, there should be either a decision or a license or acknowledgement, recognition of the program that programs they are implementing. So if you are IAGK, a private VET provider, then you are as well licensed by the Ministry of Education, and or you should have an accreditation. I don't know whether it answers your question, but this is how I understood it. Mr. 𝗂𝗏𝗵𝗶, just to clarify further, will the training programs include non-technical training, or is it strictly within the technical scope? It is strictly within the cooperative training scope for our program. So meaning that, I don't know what a non-technical training is, so it's only classroom training theoretical. We mentioned earlier that one of the eligibility criteria is that there should be a cooperative training program in place or in the project proposal, which implies some on-job practical training, therefore technical. Another question related to the sectors: are the agriculture and agro-processing included in this call? Are they eligible? We said that the RCF supports all programs regardless of the sectors. This is a non-sector specific grant program. Mr. Ymeraga, can it be one VET and one company, which is like hub of other companies? Of course, other companies shall confirm in written their participation and support. I don't
No,
understand.
I would rather expect the companies to be part of the consortium also formally, sign the memorandum of understanding, and also authorize the information provided in the grant management system.
If you want that institution, Mr. Faton Deșnicu is asking if one that institution wants to join with one public enterprise and one private enterprise. Will such projects be supported? They will. We said enterprises. We didn't mention the, let's say, the nature of the ownership. It could be privately owned or publicly owned. So a public enterprise is eligible. Okay. Mr. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 would like to ask a live question. Please, Mr. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. We cannot hear you. We'll leave it for later. So, Ms. 𝗲𝗵𝗍𝗀𝗃𝗵𝗍𝗍.
You have to unmute.
Can you please unmute, and you are welcome to ask your question.
Our questions have been actually answered before. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to give the word to Mr. 𝗵𝗵𝗹𝗶𝗍𝗪. Please, Mr. 𝗵𝗵𝗹𝗶.
Alo,
You're welcome. Hello.
përshëndetje.
Përshëndetje.
Unë e kom një pyetje kështu sepse pak patëm vështirësi me ndëgju krejt shërimet. Vetëm kështu në këtë projekt a duhet të implikohemi shkollë, përfaqësoj një shkollë profesionale në Drenas. Fushave inxhinierike. A duhet jenë 𝗥𝗲𝗿𝗀 pjesë e projektit sigurisht apo?
Cila duhet jetë, lutem, shpjegohet edhe një herë?
Drejtoria Komunale e Arsimit.
Jo, do jetë pjesë e projektit, pjesë e konsorciumit që unë shpjegova, duhet jetë një institucion i arsimit profesional, në rast shkolla që ju përfaqësoni, dhe minimumi 2 ndërmarrje.
Mirë, faleminderit.
Ju lutem.
Faleminderit shumë.
Faleminderit për pyetjen. Mr. 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁𝗍𝒂𝒃𝒃.
Përshëndetje.
Përshëndetje 𝗵𝗵𝗃.
Desha të di se unë përfaqësoj kompaninë 𝗂𝗵𝗃 𝗵𝗲𝗃, e cila gjitet në 𝗂𝗵𝗃, mirëpo në të njëjtin moment përfaqësoj një kompani tjetër, Kosovo Holding 𝗔𝗃. Që të dyja kanë bashkëpunim me njëra tjetrën, njëra është kultivuese e rrushit, kurse tjetra është përpunuese e saj. Në këtë mënyrë, a kishte qenë e mundur që të aplikoj me këto dy kompani dhe një marrëveshje me shkollën profesionale që gjitet në 𝗂𝗵𝗃?
Kjo do të ishte patjetër e mundur. Unë nuk e kuptova, ju jeni, po themi, aksioneri i të dy kompanive, apo?
Përfaqësuesi i tyre.
Përfaqësuesi i këtyre dy kompanive, po patjetër që është e mundur dy kompanit të partnerizohen me një institucion të arsimit profesional.
Po ne kemi menduar kështu edhe të krijojmë një klasë në të cilën nxënësit do të jenë në gjendje të kryejnë edhe praktikët e tyre dhe profesorët vinë të ligjerojnë në këtë klasë që ne do të investojmë.
Në rregull është. 𝗥𝗲𝗺𝗁𝗍 𝗔𝗍 edhe i programit tonë.
Prandaj shumë i nderuar.
Faleminderit Bekim. Mr. Arben Ymeraga. Cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I didn't get maybe from bad connection the answer to my question. I didn't hear it. So my question is, can, as a part of MOU, be one vocational educational training center or school and one company, but this one company serves as a hub for all other companies, and other companies should sign letter of support that they will engage in practical part of training the learners.
Yes, maybe I can, I will answer that again. So if there are several companies involving or getting involved in the training, then it would be, we would ask them to all be part of the consortium and sign the memorandum of understanding. That is, I think, more straightforward. And then as well in the GMS system, enter the details. That's also information that we require. So I know it's not possible to represent other companies in the consortium that participate directly.
Can I make the second and the last question for today?
Of course. Yeah.
I didn't get also, due to the bad connection, the issue of accreditation. So during the process of application, we have to show that we are on the stage on the process of accreditation, which ideally should be finalized by the time that the qualified applicants will sign the contract, which is, let's say, end of August or 1st of September.
Exactly. Yeah, correct. And if it is still end of September, let's say, during September, if it's still ongoing, we would give you a period of 6 months to complete it. Yeah, so the positive decision will remain, and you have a timeline of 6 months to complete the accreditation.
So 6 months from signing the contract, or 6 months after acceptance of the concept?
6 months after acceptance of the contract, because the funding agreement will only be signed once the accreditation is there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ymeraga. Just as, following this question of Mr. Ymeraga, there is one question from one attendee. Can you repeat, should accreditation completed by the time of signing the contract? Mr. Berman just answered that. The letter of support should be deposited right to the deadline, or all these criteria have to be submitted after the deadline once elected. I think we mentioned that during the presentation, that the expression of interest together with memorandum of understanding and letter of support should be submitted by the deadline of the expression of interest, which is April 30th. Okay. Mr. 𝗥𝗲𝗺𝗿𝗲 is asking that the accreditation of VET courses may take longer than 6 months. The new regulation of National Qualification Agency states that the accreditation might take up to 1 year.
Then we would refer to our next call of expressions of interest. So we are starting again the procedure in October, November, and then it's probably better to wait 6 months, work in the meantime on the accreditation, and then come back for the next call.
Ms. Alcañar is asking, considering the subjects. By subjects, I think you mean enterprises and 𝗵𝗫𝗊, so partners of the consortia. Association can also be association. Yes, is it possible that the association can be seated abroad, like in Germany? I'm not sure what do you refer to with association. to the VTI or the enterprise or an external partner like an association of a certain guild, so to say. But one thing was clear also during our introductions, that the RCF supports a program in the Western Balkan 6 economies. So the minimum of 1 school and 2 companies should be from the countries in the region, in this case in Kosovo. If a VTI is seated in Germany, I don't know, Frieder, whether that would be the case, that the VTI is in Germany and the enterprises are in Kosovo.
Oh, ideally, I mean, that is a nice setup in principle. Yeah, that knowledge transfer and technology transfer takes place. But then, yeah, we would encourage the VTI sitting in Germany to open a branch in Kosovo and provide the training in Kosovo in cooperation with the companies in Kosovo.
The second part, thanks for that. The second part of the question is also, is possible a consortia between institutions in Kosovo and enterprises in Albania and vice versa? Yes.
Yes.
That is possible, yeah. Mr. 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗶 would like to ask a question. Hello, Mr. Lavdim.
Hello, përshëndetje prej qendrës trajnuese diakonie. Dashka me pyet, neve kemi trajnimet profesionale të akredituar janë 3 mujore. Edhe a kemi drejt me apliku me këto trajnime dhe çysh është puna?
Programet janë të akredituara, janë institucioni
instalues elektrik, është instalues i ujësjellësit, instalues i nxehnëve shëndrore, janë të akredituar ndaj autoritetit kombëtar kualifikimeve, kemë edhe licencën, po janë vetëm 3 mujore, me 240 orë mësimore.
Është okay në këtë rast, sepse programi është brenda një viti akademik, supozohet, apo?
Po.
Në rregull. Kështu që mundet që të aplikoni, ju lutem.
Faleminderit.
I'll take some questions from, I think, okay, Ms. Vidane Kelmendi.
Përshëndetje, kam një pyetje. Ne si 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗶 Education jemi të akredituar dhe të licencuar për autoritetit kombëtar kualifikime për 2 programe 2 vjeçare. Por ne të njëjtën kohë ofrojmë dhe disa programe të cilët njihen prej vendorëve industrial dhe janë të licencuar. Mund të përfshihen edhe këto programe gjatë projektit apo vetëm ato që janë të akredituara për autoritetit kombëtar kualifikimeve?
Ju jeni institucion privat apo publik?
Jemi institucion privat të akredituar për autoritetit, po ashtu dhe të licencuar për Ministrisë së Arsimit.
Gjë që është okay edhe në linjë me kriteret që ne përmendëm.
Okej, faleminderit.
Programet janë të akredituara dhe ju si institucion jeni i licencuar.
Faleminderit shumë.
Ju lutem. Mr. Mentor JP is asking, and I think I also replied via email. You are the training hub at the University of Pristina, and you'd like to know if you can form a consortia, you as a hub, with 2 companies. And the question, I think, is do you need to be licensed or accredited? Before answering the question is, how do you operate? As a private, as a public VTI, you already have a licensing in place, and therefore your training programs are acknowledged by the Ministry of Education. To answer that question, because that is not much clear as a question, it is important, and I will emphasize again the criteria of the VTI being licensed and or accredited in the case of a private VET provider. But what is important as well is that the training program, the certificates issued after the accomplishing the training program should be recognized on a national level. So that is key there. Ms. 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗏 is asking, can it be eligible an NGO that supports women but wants to be accredited as a non-formal training provider to provide advanced training to its target group? The criteria that we talked about is that the VTI should be, again, licensed. It should be operating for at least two years, by years meaning the academic years. So it sounds like this NGO that now supports women wants to become a VTI in the future. And as Mr. Verman mentioned earlier, there will be other calls during the project, so you will try that chance in the near future, I think. Miss or Mr. Karatashi, sorry for repeating this again, but still very unclear with the letter of support from institution and how it is related to budget implication. Mr. Frieder can explain a little more in details. I will explain that again. We asked for a letter of support, and you'll find that template in the website. If you look at it, we ask the authority in charge of the VET provider to provide us with the confirmation or comfort or the support letter stating that this VTI, and this is in case of the public VTI, public VET provider, will be operating at least as long as the duration of the project is. That means that this school or institution or I don't know, training center being let's say licensed by the Ministry of Education and being a public one will not be, let's say, part in the near future of any reorganizational or merging process or whatever will happen to that VTI that will negatively affect the implementation of cooperative training program. That was the first. Second is there is a budget implication because as far as we know, in Kosovo, VET providers are economically dependent from the municipalities. In that regard, the financial, let's say, source is the municipality itself. It is the municipality who allocates the budget for salaries of the teachers, for operational expenses, utilities, and maintenance. And therefore, the municipality should state that this school is included in the budget for the next for the upcoming years, and that you do receive constant support from them in terms of maintenance and operating costs, again for the same reason, not to negatively affect the implementation of cooperative training program. I think would be clear now as an answer. There's another question on the financial statements. Should it be audited for 2 years? And should this be only from the training center or also from the enterprises, part of the consortia? The financial statements, we don't have any specific criteria on how I would like to see them. If they are audited, is very good. Published financial statements as I think national legal requirement that every enterprise publishes them at the end of the fiscal year should be as well okay. And the same goes for the VTI as well. Mr. 𝗔𝗃𝗿𝗏𝗀𝗏 is asking that you have a partnership agreement, yes, with the international certification body accredited from ISO IC 17024. Are we eligible as a consulting company in cooperation with one local company to apply? Again, back to the eligibility criteria. It should be one VTI, Vocational Training Institute, being licensed. The training program should be accredited, recognized by the national qualification framework, and therefore by the national agency who ensures their implementation. So in case you have operated in the course of vocational educational training, yes, and you have the all the licenses and accreditations required. But the other criteria is that you should partner with at least 2 companies. So one local company wouldn't do in that case. As far as the infrastructure equipments are involved, the question is who will lead the procurement process, the VTI or the program project? Frieder, maybe you answer that for.
I mentioned that briefly in my introduction, that the procurement process will as well be carried out by the fund management unit. Yeah, so there are smaller items like stationery and small equipment items that can be purchased directly by the VTI, but the procurement for equipment and also constructions will be performed by the VTI. In cooperation with the VTI for the specifications of what is needed, but the technical side of it and the compliance with KfW procurement guidelines will be ensured by our side.
Thanks, Frieder. I'll give the word to Mr. 𝗲𝗵𝗹𝗶𝗶𝗍. 𝗲𝗵𝗹, we can't hear you.
Renato, përshëndetje.
Përshëndetje, 𝗲𝗵𝗹.
Hi, dear all. Okay, I would like to represent myself. I'm 𝗲𝗵𝗹𝗶𝗍 from Training Center Meister, and I would like to ask you, a part of 2 companies, 2 enterprises that will be, let's say, the part of the consortium. Can we involve as well, let's say, one business chamber, like a Chamber of Commerce or 𝗥𝗲𝗵𝗹𝗏, in order to increase the number of companies through them? And the purpose is to increase the number of learners and students in this private company. So let's say we can reach a higher number of trainees in this project. Or shall we go individually with every company?
So to be part of the consortium, it should be companies, but it's of course a good approach to cooperate with chambers or associations in order to bring the companies to the consortium. And there's a possibility indeed to add third-party partners, so to say, which will in the future exactly have this function of facilitating either the creation of consortia or as well the placing of trainees. This will be considered as an advantage, certainly in the evaluation process. But again, the question like before, the company should be directly part of the consortium, sign the memorandum of understanding, and as well be registered in the grant management system.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the idea is that, okay, we have legally 2 enterprises as a part of the consortium, but in this case, then we can include, let's say, the business chamber with another 10 companies. Now, in this case, these 10 companies will be, let's say, listed with their names, or let's say the chamber has the right that at a later stage to involve other 10 companies, because the reason that we are asking is to have really a higher number of the trainees in this project involved.
That is good, but so if then the two companies make sure that there are training places, on-site training places available for all the other companies as well, then that would be fine. Yeah, so then you can count in all the trainees from the other companies as well. And there's as well a possibility to increase the consortium. So for example, if you start with 2, but after 6 months, all of the others find it so interesting that they would like to join, there's no problem to increase the number of companies participating in the training.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Prende, Renato.
Prende, Justin. Ms. Sarah Fusha is asking, thank you for your presentations and your answers, but can you be more specific which areas will be financially supported more by this fund? I think Pavol is typing an answer, but we can answer that live. As we said, this fund will focus or will support the cooperative training program. We'll seek the, would like to see the cooperation between private sector and VTIs. And we haven't set any criteria for the sectors who are more, let's say, of a priority than the others. So it's a non-sector specific.
Maybe Renato, I can also add that obviously, those sectors which are given priorities in national development economic programs would be considered as the ones which have our preference.
Thanks, Pavol. I'll give the word to Ms. Vlora Gashi. Hello, Vlora. Could you please unmute and ask the question? No. Ms. 𝗂𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗃, you are welcome to ask your question. Nope. We'll wait shortly for any other question in the Q&A. I don't know, I hope that it is not a technical problem that you cannot ask live questions, that it will be more efficient for all of us. But nevertheless, you always can ask direct questions to us. You'll find my contacts added in the end of the presentation, but also in the website. So you are kindly invited to do that as well. Mr. 𝗏𝗏 is asking that whether they can apply with more than one project. I think we were pretty clear on that. Consortia partners are only represented in one project proposal per call. So one call, one project proposal. Well done. I would say we stop it here for today. And I would kindly invite you all, if still some questions persist or are not being answered, to the next info session, take place in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks from now. And I thank you very much for your time and for your active role in asking questions. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Frieder and Pavol, for being here today, and the technical support team. So until next one, all the best to everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.